Hello, welcome to Other Perspectives. I'm Nancy Kaplan. This program will focus on charter amendments and the contested seat in Ward 4. We are pleased to have Dave Askins, editor of the Ann Arbor Chronicle, to discuss the charter amendments A and B and his vote no decision. Ms. Lowenstein, who supports the amendments, is unable to be here due to a prior commitment. Welcome, Dave.
Nice to be here, Nancy.
Thank you. In the Chronicle on August 18th, you published a column titled, "A Charter Change on Publishing?" That was a question. Okay.
Right.
Amendment on ballot would give council new authority. What prompted you to write this column? My understanding is that the resolution to amend the city charter was unexpected and did not have public discussion.
That's true. The date on the column was August 18th,
Yes.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
So there was a council meeting on August 17th, and it is our typical approach in the Ann Arbor Chronicle to write up a fairly long and detailed report of what goes on at council meetings. And I decided that I wanted to write a column before that report came out because those longer reports take sometimes as long as an entire week to put together. And I thought that it was an important enough issue that I wanted to get it out in front of people as quickly as possible, precisely because up until that council meeting, there was no inkling that such a resolution would be brought to put these charter amendments on the ballot.
Right, okay. You did say that there was this question of perhaps the council members thinking it was not important or that the public wouldn't have an opinion on it.
Well, I think that my recollection is that Council Member Sandy Smith characterized it as relatively innocuous. So there was actually some discussion about the fact that it did come relatively late as an addition to the agenda. It came the very day of the council meeting, and there was some frustration expressed around the table about that fact. But as she put it, it's fortunate that this should be relatively uncontroversial. It seems innocuous, and I would agree that on its face it does seem innocuous what these ballot initiatives do. But I think that with a little bit more careful reflection and study, they actually are quite significant changes. Yes. that could have perhaps benefited in their formulation of the actual amendments and perhaps in the formulation of the ballot language from a bit more public airing of the issue.
Okay. So the charter amendment to be changed, charter amendments to be changed, dates back to 1956 when publishing government notices in the local paper was the best way to inform the public. We have lost our city printed paper. Mr. Postma, city attorney, says forms of media and methods of communication have changed since 1956.
He's right.
So we live in a different world, and therefore the city charter should be changed. What is significant about the changes that would come if amendments A and B would be permitted, would be approved?
I think it's worth really focusing on each of these amendments separately. There's the one that has to do with notifications required if there's an intended change to a zoning ordinance. Mm-hmm. And then there's the other amendment that has to do with the required publication of new city ordinances passed by City Council within 10 days. Now, there is actually, as I understand it, not going to be a material effect on the city's publishing habits if the zoning ordinance amendment is passed. And the reason for that is suggested almost in the language. The language reads something like, or any other means allowed by law. And I think that that's intended to be an allusion to the state level statute that in this case is governing. So even if the city of Ann Arbor said, you know, let's relax our requirement, let's not require ourselves to publish these notifications of proposed zoning changes in the newspaper, let's allow ourselves to use some other means, it would still be the state statute. It's, I think, Chapter 125, Section 130, that stipulates that such zoning changes have to be notified, or the public hearings associated with such zoning changes need to be notified by publishing in a newspaper. So you have a state level statute that has a requirement. We have a charter amendment that right now matches that requirement, publication in a newspaper. And I think the idea behind that charter amendment is that in the event that the state legislature were to pass an amendment to the state level statute, that we would be ready and able to implement perhaps a more cost-effective means of publication should they do that. So as I understand it now, and with a basic caveat, I could be wrong, that's my understanding of the situation, that one would not necessarily have a material effect on our publishing habits. The other one is basically, it's our own concern, it's our municipality. We have decided in our city charter that we require the city council to publish its new ordinances in a newspaper. Now we're saying that's no longer required. You can if you want. There's nothing to preclude you from publishing it in a newspaper, but it's also okay for the city to just post it on the website.
Maybe
or any other means that they happen to think of.
Right. So it seemed that your column really made a clear distinction between publishing and posting.
Right. So for the column, really, the issues explored there have to do more with that Second Amendment that has to do with the publication of ordinances. So there is a fundamental distinction, I think, between the act of posting something online and the act of publishing something. So if I say, for example, thus and such was published somewhere, then my expectation is that the author of whatever it was gave it to somebody who then made some judgment that this is worthy, perhaps applied some editorial input, did some proofreading, and then took it and said, I shall now publish it, and then I shall now attach all the archiving capability of my publication to this item, the same as all the rest of the items. So there's a whole host of things that are associated with the act of publishing that are not associated with the act of posting. And essentially what this would do is say the city itself, through the act of posting, is going to satisfy the same thing that's been done previously through the act of publishing.